So my name is Jodie, and it's a real privilege to be here with you guys tonight. And I absolutely love that you guys are here. If you're from the CU or if you're just visiting tonight, so good. And especially if you're just here and you are exploring this guy, Jesus, trying to get to grips with whether he's real or not, or if he is, then what relevance does it have for you today? So just as a bit of an intro to me, because I'm talking to a bunch of people that most of you don't know me. Also, obviously, just love chatting about myself. So some key things I'm really passionate about. Hopefully you guys are passionate about them too. If you're not, then either get on board, or if you are, then we can be friends. But I love good coffee, great coffee. There's no time of day that isn't too late for coffee. Also love really great beer. So if you enjoy beer or pub trips, we'd be friends. Liverpool Football Club. If you're a football fan, or Liverpool, then we could also be friends. Finally, I mentioned this earlier to Beth and Jess. Schitt's Creek, guys. If you haven't seen Schitt's Creek, what are you doing? It's so good, and you should definitely watch it. And that's SCHITT. You know, it's good. It's not swearing. I could see some people being like, oh, "What's this?" So that's pretty much me summed up. I'm very simple. Also, the last thing I'm incredibly passionate about is students and university life, and that's kind of why I am here tonight. So much so that after I graduated from studying 4 years or something like that in Bath, studying sports science, a number of years ago now, I stayed on to carry on working with students and chatting to anyone and everyone about this guy, Jesus. So I also now study a master's in theology part-time. And so my passion for students particularly stems from, I just loved university. I had a great time. But also in my third year of uni as an undergrad, that's when I became a follower of Jesus, or Christian, or whatever you want to call it. So I grew up with both parents being atheists, and a standard hobby of mine, not lying, at secondary school included rocking up to a bunch of Christians who would give out their Oreos to entice people in, and then give out Bibles to share their faith. And I wasn't totally interested in the Bibles, and so I would literally steal their Oreos and then burn their Bibles. So I wasn't totally lovely, and I'm sure you're all far nicer than I was. At least I hope you are. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years into uni, and stuff kind of starts going a little bit wrong. I got myself into a bit of trouble with drugs and drink, and my football career went belly up. And I had no idea what was going on. And I think I still would have said, even though I was a bit of a numpty sometimes, I still would have said I was a good person. Like, I hadn't done anything that bad, you know. I looked out for people. I stopped and said hello to homeless people on the streets. I hadn't murdered anyone. I was just trying to figure stuff out. And so one day at uni, a friend invited me along to church, and I laughed in his face and in not so polite ways told him to do one. But something stirred in me. Maybe I think I got to the point where I'd realized I had kind of got to the answers of life's most important questions without really looking into it. Besides, he's a pretty great person, and I guess I wanted to be a little bit more like him. So I decided to go along, and I didn't really engage with it right up until the end, where they went into some singing, and this guy shared a verse from the New Testament, which is kind of the part of the Bible that documents Jesus, his life, his death, his resurrection, and then the what next bits. And the verse said this. It says, where is it? So it says, the Son of God, that is Jesus, loved me and gave himself for me. And I just loved it. And he kind of finished it off and said, will you come and lay down your perception of religion and come and get to know Jesus? And something just clicked. I wanted to get to know more. I wanted to get to know Jesus. I wanted to get to know a little bit more. And it is as personal as that. And if you had have been the only person in this world, Jesus still would have died for you. He loves you that much. And that understanding totally changed my life. It changed my heart. It's changed my outlook. It's changed my family. It's changed my friendships. Like, the Son of God loves me. That is God's love for you. God loves you so much, and it's his love for you. It's totally unconditional. It's wholehearted. It is continual. And it is this incredible, indescribable love that led Jesus to die for me, for you. And that is the good news. And if you only hear one thing tonight, guys, hear that, please. But if I were to ask you the question, why did Jesus need to die? Like, what did he die for? What is the problem? What would you say? Maybe you're here today and you went to Sunday school, or you have an idea of Christianity or the Christian message, and you could reel off an answer like, Jesus died for my sins. Or maybe you have absolutely no idea. Maybe you're here and you're acutely aware of your downfalls. Or maybe you're here much like I was, and you're like, okay, I've done some bad stuff, but I know I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not the worst. And I'm definitely not as bad as Jody was. And I believe you guys are all like, you're decent people, right? And of course you are, because you're created in the image of God. And that means you are a total masterpiece. Human beings, we're capable of extraordinary things because we're created in the image of God. And like, that is totally magnificent. And we can produce great music, art, and literature, and we're capable of love and self-sacrifice, devotion and kindness. But there is also the flip side to the coin, right? We are capable of some pretty horrendous stuff. You only have to look at the news, right? Turn on your phone or click on the app or whatever it is to see that there are some terrible things going on around the world. There is evil happening all around us, right, guys? But the world is more complex than just saying, well, like, they're people over there, they're the evil ones, and these are the good people. Because it's way more mixed. People who are capable of great love and devotion and kindness can also do some pretty bad stuff. And I used to think I had like no regrets. But really, if I'm being honest, I think I was living in denial a little bit. And I don't know about you guys, but like, I've done some stuff in my life that I deeply regret. I've said some horrible things. I've hurt some people. I've even hurt people that I love. So if I were to ask you today, guys, a question, and if you were wearing a rucksack, right, and we filled it with kind of the hurt you've caused, or your brokenness, or your sin, would it be heavy? For some of you, you're like, nah, I'm a decent human, absolutely nothing. And for others of you, you're like, yeah, crikey, I'd be on my back, it's that heavy. And I do wonder where are you at with that? And this is what Jesus came to address. It's this stops us from being in relationship with him. And he came to show us how to truly live, and then to take the backpack or our sins for us. And if you're like, nah, my backpack is totally fine, like totally okay. The Apostle Paul, who was an early follower of Jesus, he kind of puts it like this, and fairly bluntly. He says, all of us have sinned. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. We've all got our stuff. So, I mean, what is sin? Right? Sin is a word that's changed meaning in our culture. But in short, sin in the Bible is the bad stuff. It's the failure of meeting this perfect standard that Jesus is and Jesus set. It's missing the mark or falling short of that. And I love this definition found in a great video on a word study of sin that there'll be a link posted to in a moment. And it says, sin is a failure to love God and humans created in his image by not treating them with the honor that they deserve. Like, crikey. So the video in the chat is by these awesome guys at the Bible Project, and they take these crazy hard topics and make them way easier and way more eloquent than I could ever put into words. So it makes it easier to understand there. So Paul says, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So what does that mean? As I mentioned, like all of us, we have sinned. And I personally find it so hard to admit that I do anything wrong. Like, I'm the golden girl. The words, I'm sorry, they just don't come out of my mouth all too often. And I find, like, if I do something wrong, then I kind of just blame something else, someone else, or something that's happening in my life. And, you know, I think we all look to make excuses of some capacity because none of us like feeling that guilt, right? But if we're all honest, we've all done stuff that we know isn't right. And so the glory, the perfectness in God was revealed to us in Jesus. And compared to him, like whatever you think of him, God, good teacher, rabbi, somewhat of a nut job, like we can't dispute the fact that he did some incredible things whilst on this earth. And compared to him, whatever we think about him, we all fall a very long way short. And there's a verse in the New Testament that says this about Jesus. He said, he committed no sin and no deceit was found in his mouth. when they, that is the religious leaders and the people kind of persecuting him at the time, when they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats, and instead he entrusted himself to the one who judges justly. So even on the cross, he's facing the most humiliating and most painful death. Jesus was without sin. I don't know about you guys, but if someone was nailing thorns into my skull and nailing nails into my hands, I might have a few choice words to throw their way. So Jesus was perfect. And Jesus also redefined the moral code as to what sin was, right? So the people following Jesus 2,000 years ago were not all too dissimilar to us. I mean, granted, like they were very dissimilar to us in many ways. But there's this amalgamation of Jesus' famous talks grouped together in what is known as the Sermon on the Mount. And so this was kind of Jesus' manifesto, as it were, his key teachings. And the people around him were asking similar questions to us, like, why do I need you? I don't do much wrong. And he says some crazy things. And he's like, right, yeah, okay. So you haven't murdered anyone, but have you ever been angry at someone? And I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely been angry at someone. And he's like, yep, that's sin. Right, okay, so you haven't cheated on your husband or wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, but have you ever thought about another woman or man lustfully? And I'm like, man, Bradley Cooper is a babe. And he's like, yeah, that's sin. Like, Jodie, have you ever judged anyone? And I'm like, well, yeah, definitely. That weirdo was walking down the street the other day. And he's like, yeah, that's falling short of the perfection that I set. And he wasn't doing this to condemn them. And he's not doing this now to condemn us. He's saying this stuff because he deeply, deeply cares and wanted people to know that there is a way through Jesus to be truly forgiven and for people to be set free of the baggage, the sin that they have got. So all of us, every single one of us, you, me, the guy to the left of you on your screen, we've all got our stuff, our downfalls. So what does it matter? Well, there's a number of effects of sin on our lives, right? And I've kind of heard them be put into the 4 Ps to make it slightly easier to remember. So the first of all is the pollution of sin. And if any of you guys care at all about creation or look at the news, you will understand that our world is in a dire state, right? Pollution is all around us, and it's similar in our hearts, in our bodies, and our characters. The things that we do wrong spoil that, and it's like the pollution of the environment that it starts rolling, and it gains a momentum that we cannot control. So the stuff that we do can affect our judgment, our relationships, the way that we love one another. It can spoil our relationships with other people. So it's the pollution of sin in our characters, in our lives, in our minds, in our hearts. Secondly, it's the power of sin. So the bad stuff in our life, right? The bad habits, the bad ways of functioning, or the bad ways that we're formed, they can be pretty addictive. I don't know if you guys have ever tried drugs, or whether you'd say you're addicted to drink or your phone, social media, pornography, whatever it might be. Addiction is real, it is powerful. And Jesus says, whoever sins is a slave of sin. And a great definition of addiction is, well, it's the stuff that we do that makes us feel terrible, but we feel the only way to get better is to do it again. And it's this perpetual cycle of, I just can't get out of it. And so there's a severity of it that grabs hold of us or makes us blind to it until it's all too late. And then the third P is the penalty of sin. So it's something within us as humans, right, that cries out for justice. We see these horrible things going on around the world and we say like, oh man, that ought to not be happening. They should be stopped or they should be brought to justice. And that's true for God too. And I often hear people who say, oh, I just can't believe in a God who is angry. And I'd say, well, can't you? Like, if your heart aches at the state of this world, the racism, the politics, the sexual abuse, the disparity and inequality between races or genders or socioeconomic statuses, like God's heart breaks at the injustice in this world even more. And one day there will be justice and there will be judgment. And it doesn't come from this flying off the handlebars, flipping his lid, angry God, but a perfectly loving, angry at the sin in this world, not angry at you, remember he loves you, but a God whose heart longs for us to be set free from the sin in our lives. And the fourth P is the partition of sin. So you know how it is when we've kind of offended someone or someone has offended us. We don't want to look them in the eye, right? We try and avoid them because something's come between us. And what the New Testament says is the stuff that we do wrong has caused a partition between us and God. So there's a gap or a block between ourselves and God. So kind of much like the backpack analogy I mentioned earlier, if only someone was trying to hug you from behind. So that's, if you like, the bad news, right? Jodie got the bleak week. She's got to talk about all of the tricky sin and the darkness. And I know I've made a few kind of quips or attempts at jokes in here, but we do have to see that this is serious and we are all in need. But the good news is this: there is a solution, and you guys will hear way more about this next week. But as a snippet, like I've mentioned, I don't know if you know, but God loves you. The Son of God loved me and gave himself for me. God has come to this earth in the person of his son, Jesus, to do something about it, to die for you, die for me, and to show us how to truly live. And I just thought about a quick story earlier to kind of illustrate this. So I'm the kind of person, I don't know if any of you guys drive, but I'm not a great driver. And when driving, my car starts often making these really horrible noises. And so what do? I just turn up my killer's Mr. Brightside way louder. I ignore the problem, right? And if I do that for long enough, it'll go away. However, that doesn't work, right? I'm sure it doesn't take much of a genius to realize that. And when I actually faced up to these horrible noises, I took it to the garage where I met this lovely older man. And he took one look at the car and not me, and was like, yeah, that's bad. That's going to cost you a decent amount of money. And pretty gutted, I left it with him. And I came back the following week and he fixed my car. And not only did he fix the horrible sounds, but for whatever reason, whether he's just a nice guy, whether he'd taken a bit of a fancy to me, I don't know. He'd cleaned it and he'd fixed all of the other problems and he'd given me a new air freshener. And I was like, crikey, that's so nice. But I can't even afford the initial fix, never mind all of the fancy little trimmings that you've given me. But for some reason, it turns out that he was a lovely Christian from a lovely church in the city. What was supposed to cost me well over $1,000, he charged me a couple of £100 for. So incredible stuff. And now with any analogy, there are limits, but this is kind of like Jesus and our sin, right? With our sin, we can either choose to turn up our music and let the problem get worse, to totally ignore the results of what we're doing there, for it to pollute our soul, for it to become addictive, for it to drive a bigger wedge between us and the people around us and God, or we can face the problem. We can turn to Jesus and say, man, yeah, I've got some stuff here. I acknowledge my sin and I'm sorry. And the thing we get back in return is far better than anything we had at the start. And that's a life filled with love and joy and peace and hope and so much more. Like, guys, I have tried searching. I have found momentary happiness in professional sport or academic achievements, in other people, in being a good person or trying to be, in bars, in drugs, in meaningless one-night stands. And guys, nothing compares to the life that I have found in Jesus. But of course, the choice is yours. There is never any judgment at all here from me or anyone around you. And if this is all a bit too much for you and you're like, what on earth? I thought we were playing Among Us tonight, bro. That's totally okay. There is zero pressure to do or say anything. And I appreciate this can be pretty heavy. But if you're here tonight and you're in that place of realizing, man, yeah, my backpack is full, or there's a noise in my car, or there's some stuff I need forgiveness for, however you want to put it. If you're at a place where tonight you want to experience the love and forgiveness of God for the first time, for a time afresh, if you're coming back to God, that is awesome. And if that is you, I'm going to pray a quick prayer now. And if any of it resonates with you, why not pray along out loud in your room or in your heart if your roommates are in the room next to you and you feel weird about it. But nothing weird. I'm just going to quickly pray now. And so, Jesus, I recognize that I have fallen short of your incredible standard. I am sorry for my sin. and I choose to open up my life to you and to receive your forgiveness. Would you come and reveal more of your awesome character and love in my life? Amen. And guys, I can only say that for me, getting to know God through the person of this 2,000-year-old bloke called Jesus has been the greatest adventure I've ever been on. And it's not been easy, and he never said it would be, but he did say that Jesus came so we can have life and have it to the full, and that there would be a whole lot of forgiveness and love and mercy and joy along the way. So if you take nothing else from tonight, please hear this. God really, really loves you. And in spite of all that we do, he desperately wants to be in relationship with you. And my encouragement on all this is, will you just come and get to know him some more? Will you come back next week to hear about this big plan of Jesus coming to save us? If you've come with a friend tonight, do pepper them with questions. Or if you've got more to chat about and you're here on your own, or you'd rather not chat to your pal about this, I'll put my email in the chat later, and do drop me a line. But I also think we're going to go into some questions now and stick around. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I don't quite know how to end that. Over to Esther.